gathered here today for the second day of the International Conference on Advancing Ethical Knowledge and Wisdom, Interdisciplinary Practices and Research. Let us remember the profound words of Louis Pasteur. Science knows no country because knowledge belongs to humanity and is the torch which illuminates the world. This reminds us that knowledge, no matter the field or discipline, is a shared legacy that bridges cultures, transcends borders, and illuminates pathways to a brighter and wiser future. With this spirit of shared learning and ethical advancement, let us embark on today's journey together. I am Shreya Singh, a fourth-year Bachelor of Social Work student.
And I am Sahil Ansar, a third-year computer science student, and we are delighted to be your MC for today. On behalf of St. Xavier's College, we extend a warm and respectful welcome to each of you as we embark on the second day of our conference journey. Yesterday, we were privileged to engage in thought-provoking discussions and listen to presentations that spanned a wide range of topics related to ethics, research practices, and interdisciplinary innovations. We extend our heartfelt gratitude to each participant for their valuable contributions and hope to carry that same spirit of intellectual engagement into today's program.
With that, let us now move forward to formally commence the proceedings of the day. I kindly request everyone to rise for the national anthem.
Thank you, everyone. Today's schedule has been thoughtfully designed to include a series of keynote speeches, panel sessions, and interactive discussions, all of which are aimed at fostering a deeper understanding of ethics in research and promoting interdisciplinary practices. We are confident that today's sessions will inspire new perspectives and provide valuable insights for each participant.
As historian and philosopher George Santayana once said, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." We are delighted to introduce our chief guest, Professor Dr. Milos Gišnar, SJ, President of Trnava University, Slovakia. Today he will be sharing his extensive knowledge on lessons from ancient times, early European history in imparting ethical knowledge and wisdom. Let us warmly welcome him with a huge round of applause.
Good morning to everybody. I will not use any presentation as the others, so as it was in ancient times, they didn't use any presentation. So you will have opportunity to concentrate more my my speech and my Slovakian English accent. Allow me to begin by thanking you for the invitation to this conference. We are looking for ethical knowledge and wisdom to help us live better together in this contemporary world, which seems to us to be in a great crisis. Looking at the history I work with, however, tell us that this is not the first crisis in history, and nor will it be the last. The geopolitical situation accelerates many processes, good as well as bad, and every simplistic answer would be an expression of disrespect to the complex reality of life in contemporary society and how we would like to see it. The renewal of thought in Christianity always occurred by returning to the text of early church authors. Therefore, I will point out in my lecture certain inspirational impulses, 6 of them, for the ethic and wisdom of our times. The period from which I draw inspiration terminates at 8th century. This period reminds us of the complexity of life with its plural character of responses that are not black and white. Ethic is greatly present in the writings of early Christianity. The first impulse relates to the impact of ethical behavior on our environment. Around year 100, Clement of Rome wrote a long letter to Rome about the envy and jealousy that was destroying the community of believers, as it is today. This topic is then regularly found in other authors, according to whom these two vices cause disruption in any functioning community. These authors emphasize the connection between a person's own belief and ethical behavior toward the self and others. They thus manage to escape the suspicion of moralizing. The second impulse concerns behavior toward others who are of a different culture and language. These therefore relate to the migration crisis and the rise of political and non-political movements that oppose it and want to involve believers of different faith in this tension. We first of all see that Europe is a no longer Christian continent, as we like to emphasize in the past. We often have before us differently formed and frequently suffering people, often formerly believers. And those who come to Europe by different routes and who are different in terms of opinion, culture, and faith are not our enemies, but are people looking for our helping hand. I said that those who come to us are not our enemies. Creating an enemy is a common political strategy used to maintain the cohesion of a certain group, but this has nothing to do with Christianity, because the basis of Christianity is an inclusive approach. Therefore, we must also reject univocally any effort to instrumentalize any religion, that is the abusing of religion symbolism by political, economic, and social forces that do not look on man as created in the image and likeness of God, but only as a number. Groups that use religion as a tool for their own ends often contribute to xenophobia and especially anti-Semitism. The third impulse from ancient times relates to the understanding of human freedom and responsibility in ethical and moral action. Christian anthropology is also a great contribution of early Christian authors. It is in regard to the question, who is mankind and why is he here? We here recall the well-known debate about the supernatural and the figure of Henri de Lubac, who developed the well-known early Christian thesis about the human being which is naturally orientated toward God. Early Christian anthropology is actually the result of Christian sacred texts in contact with the secular Greco-Roman world. The Church Fathers remind us of the importance of freedom, because being created in God's image is to be free. The vision of understanding human freedom its clear responsibility can thus bring new impulses for philosophical thought. This also includes the early Christian rejection of nationalism, which appeared as such only after the French Revolution, not before. In this context, I will mention the philosopher and Christian martyr Justin, died about 165, who spoke about the logos spermaticos, a doctrine he took from the Stoics. According to Justin, these are particles of truth, the logos, which are also found in other cultures and religious systems. Here the theme of natural law, which is universal for everyone, is developed against the claims of the philosopher Celsus, who emphasized only local rights, limited by culture, customs, and agreements. According to Celsus, who died 115, what is ethical is only what we agree on. Origen and then mainly Ambrosius of Milan therefore emphasized that certain traces of universal ethical principles can be found in the soul of every person. This topic of natural law made it possible to talk about the presence of ethical requirements in the human mind and thus emphasize its universality. It cannot be reduced to customs. The fourth impulse concerns anthropology, which speaks of the central standing of man in the cosmos, thereby stating clearly in the next steps man's responsibility for the entire creation entrusted to him. It therefore has a strong connection to what in today's language is called ecology, the care of our common home. It reminds Christians that they should not only proclaim the faith, but should also try to ensure that those to whom they proclaim this faith also have a place to live. Such thinking has a clear impact in the rejection of consumerism and leads a person to a way of life that in ancient times was called asceticism. This was never an end in itself, but always had an impact on the community of people. Asceticism is namely moderation, which accepts what is necessary and does not reserve what is extra for itself, but in the context of the biblical text, give it to the needy. In this way, we come to the great topic of social ethical engagement, which is based on the experience of faith. We perhaps find the most impulses in the era of social and ethical behavior. Early church authors were abundantly devoted to the relationship between the Christian and the state. And it is certain that this issue would require a separate study. The fifth impulse relates to social engagement towards the abject and the poor. Charity, as we know it today, is largely the result of the contact of early church leaders and Jewish world. At the same time, the expanding of care for Christians, it is for their own, to care for non-Christians as well, comes in this period. Here I will mention Bishop Cyprian, 3rd century, an author from Carthage, North Africa. The world of Africa and Asia at that time was stricken by the second pandemic. Early Christian communities were characterized by economic sharing and social care for the poor. It needs to be remembered that in this period there was no public care for the sick, and pagans who did not believe in the afterlife preferred to run away from the illness to another place or bypass the sick and leave them without help. Cyprian thus emphasized that a Christian helps not only Christians in prison or sick Christians, but also pagans. As a sixth impulse, I will underline that in several sermons that these authors spoke out against usury, corruption, and the flourishing social injustice in the society. Not now, but also in the fourth society, the same. Here I will give the example of Ambrose of Milan, the author from the 4th century. His work on Naboth is based on a biblical description of the behavior of King Ahab, who longed for Naboth's vineyard. Naboth did not want to relinquish to the king Ahab, however, and so the king's wife concocted an accusation of corruption against Naboth, who was punished by death, so that the king could appropriate his vineyard. This story gave Ambrose the opportunity for the first time in the history and the first systematic treatise on this kind against corruption and injury. How many innocent Naboths, asked Ambrose, are daily killed and their possessions seized? The basic impulse for the building of hospitals can be found in the middle of the 4th century in the figure of Saint Basil the Great, today Turkey, who founded what many historians consider to be the very first hospital. In about year 390, John Chrysostom described two separate social charitable establishments run by the Christians of Antioch in Syria today. One was leprosarium for lepers and people without incurable cancer. The other was called in Greek xenon, a synonym for xenodocheion, a house for strangers. Here patients with various diseases and many forms of suffering could be seen. Although this is not directly associated with social feelings, we recall in this context that several theologians in the 16th and 17th century dealings with difficult questions related to Latin America, and theologians who came directly from there to Europe drew their ideas from the Church Fathers. Many thus condemned various forms of colonization and misguided evangelization, which was based on violence, as well as entrenched social injustice, which in their view was inconsistent with the spirit of the gospel. Bartholomeus de las Casas, for example, an excellent author and thinker, was inspired by the works of authors from the 4th century, such as John Chrysostom, Ambrose, and Augustine, and speaking against slavery. Sometimes we perceive the period of early Christianity as a monolithic age, but it was the age of pluralistic cultural diversity. They considered difference as an intrinsic value of unity. Early church thinkers vehemently defended themselves against an external uniformity that suppresses rich diversity. This unity in multiplicity is also expressed in these authors in theological ethical pluralism, by which they understood the fact that the same faith and values can be stated in different ways and with different linguistic expressions. In conclusion, I have herein offered these 6 impulses. Because I find them useful in the current debate in the context of the topic of this conference. I believe that they will provide you with at least a small glimpse into the rich work of early Christian thinkers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Listener, for that insightful and thought-provoking presentation. Your insights into the ethical wisdom, derived from historical perspectives, offer us a timeless framework for contemporary research and education.
We are pleased to invite Professor Dr. Vinny Sebastian from St. Xavier's Institute of Education, India, to continue our session. She will be speaking on the Ignatian pedagogical paradigm for developing ethical practices and wisdom. Let's show our appreciation by welcoming her to the stage.
Good morning, respected Reverend Dr. Agustin, Principal, St. Xavier's College, Father Bobby, Director, Loyola College, Dr. Mani Raj Bandari, Convener of the conference, our Chief Guest, Father Milosh Mishna, and esteemed keynote speakers, participants, faculty members, and students. Good morning. I thought it would be good afternoon because my session was after lunch, and yesterday I spent a lot of time thinking how to keep you awake after lunch, but it's now in the morning, so I'm happy to be here. I congratulate St. Xavier's College for organizing this conference. I'm honored to be here participating in the conference as well as giving the keynote address on a favorite topic of mine, the IPP. I'm happy that we could have the IPP course for several faculty members of this college, and I'm sure that all of you are enriched by the course. I'm not going to speak a lot on IPP because all of you, the faculty members, are aware of it, but here we have a mixed group. So I'll just give a small background of it before we proceed. The IPP comes from Ignatian pedagogical paradigm. The way we look at it, it is a method of teaching. We look at it as a method of teaching. It comes from Saint Ignatius of Loyola. Saint Ignatius of Loyola is the founder of the Jesuit order, the priest who ran this college. We have a worldwide network of Jesuit institutions. So you know that they have a lot of work in education, and therefore the paradigm we are talking about mostly it's for the teaching learning purpose. But when you look at the Ignatian pedagogical paradigm, it can also be used for your own life. Okay, it's a transforming paradigm and it can be used for your own life. So St. Ignatius of Loyola went through a period of transformation, and he wrote a book called the Spiritual Exercises. As we have the exercises for your body, he had written spiritual exercises, and from the spiritual exercises is derived the Ignatian pedagogical paradigm. So if you look at the paradigm, it has got 5 stages. It has got the context, the experience, reflection, action, and evaluation. So if you look at the paradigm in this diagram, there are a number of diagrams if you look at the Google, but I like this one. If you look at the center, you have the experience, reflection, and action together. It all revolves in a context and it can also be evaluated. Okay? It looks very simple, but it is very difficult to practice. I myself struggle to practice the IPP. It involves a lot of ethical practices, as well as the use of IPP also helps us to develop a lot of wisdom, how to involve ourselves in the teaching learning practice, how to treat our students, how to talk in the class, how to design your learning experiences, how to design your assessment, everything, all the answers are there in the IPP. So when I started teaching, I thought I knew how to teach, but after I learned IPP, I thought I need to improve and improve. So I'm still improving. So if you look at the stages isolated in an isolated way, you won't understand the meaning of those stages. So all the stages are connected with each other. So we are talking about ethical practices and wisdom. So if you look at ethical practices as awareness of what is right and wrong, it has got, the IPP speaks about discernment. It comes from the Ignatian principle of discernment. That is selecting the option that is good for self as well as for others. Okay? And it has got, we have to practice a lot of Ignatian values while using the IPP. The foremost value which I consider is cura personalis. cura personalis is care for self as well as others. Okay, we do not care for our own self sometimes. We do not know our own self. So care for yourself and also care for others. Being mindful of others. And we have the 4 C's: compassion, competence, conscience, and commitment. So these are the 4 C's which we keep in mind while practicing the IPP. Wisdom comes from the way of thinking and also possessing vast knowledge. Now when you use the IPP, you have a lot of knowledge about your students, also about the kind of experiences you are giving them, the kind of assessment you are going to give them, and then when you are evaluating, you gain more knowledge about your students and about the way you have taught them, and also you know how to improve. Again, you need to discern when you get your knowledge, you need to discern simultaneously. And wisdom is an experience that a person encounters before making a decision. So, Ignatian pedagogical paradigm believes in reflection and action. So, this reflection is a very important stage in the Ignatian pedagogical paradigm. Every experience has to be followed by reflection, and then it has to be followed by a meaningful action which needs to be evaluated in a context. So when you talk about the context of the learner, okay, we have different kind of learners in the class, and we face a conflict in dealing with different kinds of learners. When we go to the class, we look at the class as a group of students, but there are different kinds of students in the class. The Ignatian pedagogical paradigm starts with the context of learning. So you have students the previous knowledge that the students possess, interest in the subject, the problems that they have, certain disabilities, certain fears, certain influences that the students carry with them. So these are all part of the context of the learner that the teacher needs to be aware of, the student needs to be aware of. Even as a student, you need to be aware of the context that you're coming from. So the teacher should have a proper knowledge of the physical situation. The physical would be the infrastructure, the subject, yourself, the students, as well as the emotional situation. Sometimes you go to the class and you get a feel that the students don't want the class at all. You get that vibe. So you have to change that. If you want to teach, then you have to sense that emotional situation of your class. And if you still want to teach, you need to motivate your students for the class. You can't say, okay, if the children don't want to study, so I will not teach. It's not like that. So you can motivate your students for your class. So you have to be aware of the physical situation as well as the emotional situation when you are going to the class. So the predisposition for learning is very, very important. Ignatius spoke about the predisposition for prayer. You have to be prepared for learning. So you have to develop the predisposition for learning. When you learn, when you know the context of the learner, then you can easily prepare the learner for the learning situation. I'm sorry, I'm not looking up. I'm only looking down, so don't feel neglected. Because it's just about the eye level. So I'm with you, okay? You need to cut out all the distractions when the child is learning. All distractions have to be cut out. And an attitude has to be developed for learning. And your learning experience or your learning environment should be very engaging. Okay, it should be engaging. The child should not have a minute to think of something else but participate in your learning. So can you create a learning environment that's very engaging? The next stage is about the experience where you are actually teaching your subject and you are involving the learners. Now when I look at the involvement of all learners, we have classes which are very large. Like in India, we have around 75 students in the class. My class has 100 students. So how do you make all learners involved in your class? You have to see that each and every learner is involved in the class. Okay, as a teacher, I would not be able to say that I've done a good job if each and every student is not involved in my class. Okay, I have gone to the class to teach. So I need to see that all the students are involved in my class. So my learning experience should be such that all the learners are involved in the class. Okay? If the experience is not, if all the learners have not developed the experience, then you cannot move to the next stage of reflection, action and evaluation in IPP. Okay? So everyone has to gain the experience fully. We have to learn a new language. Now what is this new language? It is of the subject, it is about relating with others. So you learn a new language of relating, of interacting with others. Students' experiences have to be harnessed. Most of the time when we go to the class, we are the ones who are talking. We are the ones who are sharing our experience. But we have to consider that the students also have experiences to share. So you need to make the students talk with their own experience and enrich the class with the students' experience. Make them think. We have said a lot about thinking in the previous sessions also, and make them have informed choices. Now many of the students nowadays do not know how to choose, okay, between two choices. So they are confused. So you have to teach them how to make a decision, and all this will happen when you provide a good learning environment. Ignatius stresses on imagination and creativity. You have to tap the students' imagination and you have to give creative learning experience. So whatever learning experiences you are giving in the class, students as well as teachers who are present here, you have to see that your learning experience is enhancing your own creativity. Okay? And you have got the word marches. So this will help you to achieve the marches, that is the greater good, the greater ability. Whatever you are, you can go one step beyond. Okay? So for the greater good, you can achieve the greater good. And as students, if the teachers are giving you the experience, as students also, you are supposed to give back something. Okay? Ignatius speaks about love. He says that love is not in words, but it is in action. And the lover gives the beloved something of himself or herself, and the beloved also gives back to the lover. Okay? So if you consider the teacher and the student, it is not the teacher who is giving, but the student also has to give the willingness to learn. Okay? So willingness to give themselves fully, willingness to accept the instructions, willingness to engage in projects. Okay? So that is what the student has to give the teacher. So if there is a giving from both the sides, then only the experience will become an enriched experience. So we have experience, we have direct experiences, we have indirect experiences, and these experiences should touch the cognitive as well as the affective. That is the head and the heart. Okay? Most of the time we are only giving head level experiences, the cognitive level, very high intellectually high experiences, but it's not reaching the heart, okay, the emotions. Like for example, if I'm teaching about a square, a mathematics teacher talks about the square. Each side of the square, for example, is 5 centimeters. If one side is 5.1 centimeter, will it be a square? Will it be a square? It will not be a square. So it is as perfect as this. So if the teacher makes the student appreciate the square, the perfectness of a square, and how if one side is increased, it will not remain a square, then it reaches the heart level. Okay? You are making the student appreciate what you are teaching. Okay? So it is the cognitive plus the affective. The Ignatian experiences are always touching the head and the heart level. So you have, through the experiences, you get the knowledge of the content that you are teaching, the subject, as well as knowledge of yourself. When I speak about the square, you did reflect about yourself, whether you are perfect or not. Okay, and how you can reach the level of perfection. So you have the knowledge of the subject as well as knowledge of the self. Every experience should not be the knowledge of the content only. It should also lead to knowledge of the self. Then you move to the reflection. Okay? The reflection is, now when I'm saying, it's not one stage after the other, these stages can run in simultaneously. Reflection on the experience. Whatever experience the student has gone through, the child has to reflect. Okay? The teacher has to reflect. Even the teacher is going through an experience, the teacher also has to reflect. And through reflection, you get a lot of interior knowledge. Ignatian speaks about interior knowledge, knowing of yourself. Okay? Through the experience, you have to know yourself better. So, it requires deep contemplation on the content and the experiences. Okay? Whatever the child has gone through, the student has gone through, and this will lead to action. Naturally, when you are thinking about yourself, you definitely think that, yes, I need to improve, I need to do something better. Okay? These are the voices you will hear after reflection. So what you will do is the kind of action that you will be taking. And this would be the transformative part in the student and the teacher. Okay? So when you are reflecting, you are contemplating, which will lead into action. So the phrase which is used in Ignatian principle is contemplatives in action. Okay, so you deeply reflect and you come to an action. And this will develop your personal strength. If you do this continuously after an experience, then it will develop your personal strength. So it is not only the teaching learning situation. Any situation in your life, when you go through an experience, you reflect on it, you come to an action and you improve further, that is a magis, you will increase in personal strength. Okay? So, and it will also help you to discern. Now, discernment is another concept in Ignatian spirituality. So, discernment, for now, we will think of taking a good decision. Okay? So, you can rise above the ordinary, and reflection will lead to ethical practices. What you should do, what you should not do, this will decide, reflection will decide. So you reflect on the experience, you move to action, and the teacher in this stage can be as a mentor for the students, and the student will be faced with a lot of choices, and these choices have to be externally manifested. Okay? So if I decide that from tomorrow I will come to college on time, I cannot just think about it, I have to do. Okay? So the choices come in my mind, should I come in time, should I not come in time? Yes, if I come in time, these are the benefits. So I decide that I have to come in time, and from tomorrow I have to come in time. So interior choices and external manifestations. Okay? So you don't have to do very big actions. You can do small actions which can lead to big impact. Okay? As Pope, this is the mandate of Pope Francis. He says that do small actions and lead to a big impact. Okay? So if you're going to switch off the switches, after you finish your work, and that will lead to a big impact. If you turn off your tap, running tap, that will lead to a big impact. So it will be small actions that you can do. The next one is evaluation. Now when you look at evaluation, you only think, as teachers, we think of evaluating the content. Okay, the exams, the unit test, all those things we do. Oh, definitely these are very, very important in evaluating the content. But Ignatius says that in the IPP, you have to evaluate the context. The context in which you are teaching. Evaluate the context. Did you understand the context clearly? What was the student's context? Okay, evaluate the kind of teaching you were teaching, right? So you can take the feedback from the students. So you evaluate your teaching through feedback. You evaluate the peers with which the students were sitting. So the peers, you can evaluate what was their contribution in teaching. You can evaluate self. You can evaluate self. You can also make your students evaluate their self, like how better they have become through your experience. Do you think that they have become better people? Okay, and what are the different values they have adopted now? Good values that they have adopted. Have they become better than yesterday? Okay, so this is the evaluation. So the evaluation is quite broad in IPP. It is not only the evaluation of the content. Definitely, Ignatius says excellence is very important. You have to strive towards excellence. But excellence is not only 100% result. Excellence is forming good human beings. Okay. So, some of the practices in evaluation to gain a good evaluation: no rote learning. Okay, no rote learning. Creativity is very important. Problem solving is important for the student, as well as application-based questions. So we have in our exam system, we have to see whether we are promoting the creativity of the students, whether we are encouraging rote-based learning. Because if the student learns our answers and writes in the exam, they may get 80%, 90%, but that is not what is encouraged in IIT. Okay, so you have seen the spiral staircase, and this is how the model will be. The first time the circle will be small, and then the spiral will increase. So you have the context, you have the experience, you have reflection, action and evaluation at the first stage, and then your context will increase. Your experience will be more advanced, then your reflection will also be advanced, action will be slightly bigger than what you have done before, your evaluation will include much more factors, and that is how your circle will keep on increasing. You will not remain in the same level. So therefore, the IPP cannot be represented as a circular form. It is better to represent it in a spiral form like this, because your circle keeps on increasing as you use the model. Okay, so leading to wisdom, ITP leading to wisdom. First you have the predisposition, then you have immersion in experience. The child has to be totally immersed in learning, in the experience that you have given. Then you have reflection and action, and then you have evaluation. So these are some of the principles. Finding God in all things is a principle that is proposed in when you are using the IPP, is that you need to respect each person. Okay, you need to respect all things. When you are talking about environmental value also, you have to respect all animals, you have to respect all trees, all things that you are using. So that is finding God in all things. And forming men and women for others, as Father Pedro Arope has said, that you need to be people for others. You should have other-centeredness. And Magis, I explained, that is for continuous improvement. And contemplatives in action, you need to deeply reflect and then take meaningful action. And cura personalis, that is care for self and care for others. So these are certain values which guide the use of IPP. So in conclusion, deeper experiences have to be provided in the class. Group interaction has to be promoted. Teach to listen and communicate and develop consensus. Encourage self-experience and self-revelation. Collective wisdom must be harnessed, that is the collective wisdom of the entire class. Reflective mapping of thoughts have to be done. When you are reflecting continuously as a person, you can map your thoughts and see in which direction you are reflecting. Okay? Is it self-oriented or is it other-oriented? You can check that and you can make constant improvement and develop plans for self-improvement and better interpersonal relationships. So go forth and set the world on fire is something that I really like about St. Ignatius, one of the thoughts. and teach us to give and not count the cost. Follow the IPP and the IPP will follow you. Thank you.
We deeply appreciate Dr. Sebastian's presentation and the valuable knowledge she shared with us today. Your insights into the Ignatian pedagogical paradigm have provided us with a thoughtful framework for understanding the role of ethics and research.
Allow me to introduce our next keynote speaker, Dr. Sashwat Rastamali. Professor Dr. Sashwat Rastamali is a specially appointed associate professor at the Cyber-Physical Computing Laboratory at Kyushu University, Japan. We look forward to Dr. Rastamali's presentation on the energy cost of artificial intelligence. Let's welcome him and get ready for an insightful presentation.
Hello. Good morning and namaste to all of you. My name is Sashwat Rastamali. I'm an associate professor in Cyber Physical Computing Laboratory at Kyushu University. Firstly, let me say thanks to the organizers of ICSXC, especially College Region, for inviting me to the talk. I come from a computer science background, so my talk will probably be very different from what you've been listening to up to now. But I hope that this interaction will be helpful for both of us in the long run. So. So this is what I'll be talking about in my talk. This is a brief introduction, and then I will give a brief idea about how much energy does AI actually use, what it costs, and what its implications may be, and talk a little bit about why AI is actually useful, give some brief introduction to what AI is, and I will then concentrate a bit more on a particular type of AI called reinforcement learning, which is the part of my research, and look at the multi-objective reinforcement learning and its pros and cons, and conclude. But basically, the main point of this presentation is for you to, for us to see AI as a tool, and there is a great good that can come out of it, but there might be some costs that we need to be aware of to see how much we want to invest in the first place. So this is a ChatGPT screenshot. I asked ChatGPT to write an email thanking the ICSXC organizers in the style of Donald Trump. And it did it. If it was me by myself, it would probably taken me, like 2 hours? It did it in less than 2 seconds. You can read it if you can see it. But can you think how much it actually costs in terms of energy to make this happen? Everyday ChatGPT servers, OpenAI ChatGPT servers, service around 200 million queries. So there are about 10 million users. So if one user has 20 queries, that's 200 million queries. That consumes around 564 megawatt hours. So that's megawatt hours. So if we were to use our upper Tamakoshi hydroelectric power, we would have to be using it full capacity just to run the ChatGPT servers. That's how much energy it takes. I guess 10, 12 years ago, even the whole of Nepal would not be able to use all of the power. Every query consumes around 3 watts hours, so that's basically 10 times the amount of energy that it would take to run a Google search. Now imagine if all your queries are not going to Google, but to OpenAI. That's 10 times the energy all over the world. And where do you think that energy is going to come from? 10 times more energy per Google search. And I'm not even talking about the training part. This is all just when you are using ChatGPT just to talk with it. The training part, again, It's like 60 gigawatt hours. That's Chilean hydropower. You use Chilean hydropower for 100 days continuously to train it. And the data is like 150 Oxford dictionaries worth of text. That's almost all of the internet. So, yes, it's very convenient. And maybe actually, if you start using ChatGPT, you'll start doing less Google searches. So maybe in the end it will balance out. But it is very necessary for us to be aware of the costs that go towards its inference. Of course, this is not to discourage you from using ChatGPT. Please do use it. We need to learn what are its limitations. So, with this in mind, the IEA, the International Energy Association, they projected that by 2026, the amount of energy we will use will double. And we will meet, the world will be able to meet all the energy consumption that the data centers will require by 2026, but it will be mostly through nuclear energy. And while that's good, at least we're not burning coal, but it raises other issues such as geopolitical issues and safety issues. Now, these are things, as a computer scientist, I really don't have a strong or educated opinion on. But if you are in the field of looking at, let's say, public policy, international relations, these are things that would really, really help computer scientists decide what the best way to go forward is. So, just to give you an idea, in 2026, the amount of energy used by data centers, these big servers that we use for internet, AI, cryptocurrency, that will use almost all of the energy that Japan uses today. And Japan is one of the most developed countries in the world. So it's just to give you some scale. And the race has just begun. There are thousands of, well, let's say hundreds of data centers being built right now, and they have like 100,000 GPUs, 300,000 GPUs, and right now, you know, like 10,000 GPUs is kind of like what you get in a normal data center. They're building 300,000 GPUs. I doubt Nepal has even 100,000 GPUs all over Nepal, just add all of them. So there's a big race happening between, you know, big companies, Google, Meta, OpenAI, Amazon. They're investing in Dubai, Malaysia, some screenshots of the maps they have. This is interesting, but this raises a lot of questions. Where will it come? Yeah, where will the energy come from? Through nuclear energy. Yeah, that's what it said earlier. I gotta restart my slides. Sorry. So basically, you probably read in the news that Google, Facebook, all of them are investing in nuclear energy nowadays to power their data centers. To the point that they even want to tap energy directly from the nuclear source instead of going through the grid. The same way, I think some of the companies in Nepal did it about 10, 20 years ago. They tapped directly from the grid, and we have to suffer 18 hours of load shedding. And this brings us to the idea of the implications of the resource consumption of AI. With so much energy being consumed, we need to kind of think what would be the environmental implications, of course, and the economical and the ethical implications of this energy use. For example, if for some reason nuclear energy doesn't deliver its promise, we'll revert back to using carbon, and that will have a global environmental impact. So while the US, Japan, and China have their advantages in AI, we will be left behind with global warming and very unseasonably warm Novembers. There's the problem of water scarcity, like a lot of water will be used in GPU data centers to cool it down. There's, of course, like use of land for building the data centers, mining for the precious, for the rare minerals to make the chips. The other part is the same thing, the load shedding schedule I showed here. If some of you are old enough or young enough to see this, it should give you trauma. That's like 6 hours of electricity per day and 18 hours of blackouts. Now think of it in a global scale. If all these big companies are just using the energy to make their ChatGPTs more fancy, and whatever is stuck here without even having energy to even warm our homes or water to drink, this will probably happen in a larger scale. And this goes back to what Professor Hiros was telling yesterday. The ones who will suffer are the most vulnerable first. The ones who are privileged will probably reap the benefits of all of the energy use and water use. And then there's the problem of access and fairness. For example, I doubt you could use ChatGPT in its premium version because you can't even use a credit card at all. Now, that gives you a very big disadvantage compared to like an 18-year-old in the US who can use their parents' credit cards to access ChatGPT premium features and do their homework, do their research. Now, is that fair? Of course not. But fairness is one thing, but 10 years down the line, you can see how far they will be, how far you will be, the opportunities they had, and the opportunities you never dreamt you could even have. So this kind of inequality between the ones with privilege and without will be exacerbated a lot with AI. Now, I'm not trying to build up some like value judgment, West and developed countries good and we are bad and we are like suffering because of that. That's not the point I'm trying to make here. The point is we need to be aware of this. At least I want to bring your attention to it. What to do about it, I don't know. I am not trained in ethics, I'm not trained in public policies. But I hope you are, or some of you will be, and you can keep this in mind when making your value judgments. Now let me go to the more technical part. Why is AI so powerful nowadays? And it really boils down to two things. One is, we found out that the bigger neural network models you have, the more accurate they are. There is less loss. So if you have a neural network with 10 million parameters, 10 million neurons, it's not better than a neural network with 100 million parameters. So the more bigger the network, better you have, which means more GPUs. And the other part is, apparently, as soon as you cross a critical size of neural network, it learns to do things you didn't actually train it for. For example, you make a big model and you train it in English Hindi translation. And somehow it can start translating Bengali to Hindi too. Or Nepali to Hindi, or Nepali to English. Somehow it figures that out. We don't really know why, but I'm not trying to say it's not super intelligent. Don't take my word, don't blow up this hype that way. But basically there are some things that need some critical size of the neural network. So these kinds of things kind of led to the paradigm shift in computer science. Instead of building models for doing a particular task, you just build a big model, give it lots of data, and it can do basically whatever you want it to do. So that's what we call bitter lessons from one of the top leading researchers in AI. So what does AI give back? What do we actually get out of it? Well, I think we already get a lot out of it. It's already very pervasive and will continue to be more pervasive in our lives. Needless to say, through the Nobel Prizes, the 2 Nobel Prizes this year went to AI scientists. You already use Google Photos, Google Translate, face recognition during boarding procedures in the internet, in the airport. Sorry. Maybe soon we'll have our girlfriends in our pockets, or boyfriends in our pockets, in our mobile phones. I don't know. But of all of these things, and this is very, very large, I just want to focus on one person. His name is Demis Hassabis. He's the founder and the CTO of DeepMind. It was DeepMind first, now it's Google DeepMind. They focus on reinforcement learning. So I will go a bit more into this later. But basically, they've done remarkable things in the past 10 years. They started with a model that can play video games better than humans, and then they moved on to models that can play Go, which is like chess, but much, much more complex, better than humans. People thought it was 10 years old, like AI will never be able to do that, and they did it in 2016. It was world-changing. And now they can do better matrix multiplications. They have almost human-level performance in competitive coding. Silver medal status in math Olympiads. So that's one of the hardest competitions, math competitions. It's silver medal. And the Nobel Prize went to their program, their model that generated protein structures and their binding properties, which is absolutely advantageous for people in medical field, medicine research, etc. Now, they even have a robot now that can absolutely beat you if you're a beginner in table tennis. If you're an expert, not so much. With the intermediate, 50-50 chance. In 2-3 years' time, pretty sure it'll be superhuman. In my opinion, not theirs. So, okay, then let's talk about intelligence. So I've talked about a lot of AI, so we need to kind of figure out what AI really is. For me, my personal opinion is AI is artificial intelligence is intelligence that doesn't come from biological evolution. It makes it easy to talk about what it is. It's not a universal definition, but a working definition. And if you use computing for developing a kind of intelligence, it's called machine learning, or what we now know usually as AI. And they're usually three types: there's supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement learning. Supervised is basically like saying, okay, this is a picture of a cat, this is a picture of a dog, classification, face detection. Unsupervised is more like clustering these kinds of things, birds of a feather. And these kinds of birds get together. These are sheep. These are dogs. You don't really train it with explicit labels. It's also data generation. So ChatGPT is a kind of unsupervised learning. And the last is reinforcement learning, in which the agent actually takes actions. So it makes the decisions, and then it learns from what kind of feedback you get to give it back. This is very, very similar to what Dr. Ving was just telling you earlier about taking the experience, getting the experience, taking an action, reflecting upon it, becoming better, and then improving yourself. It's very, very similar, the same paradigm. So it's suitable for sequential decision making. It learns via interaction. So in the process of learning, makes lots of trials and errors. This is something I trained myself. It's playing this Pong game. Basically, you can go up, down, left, right, this trigger, and depending on how much reward basically means how much score it gets in the game. It learns better policies. At some point, it learns a really good policy about sending that ball all the way to the top and tunneling. I was not looking at how much time I have. Okay. So, and there's always a long-term planning thing and exploration trade-off, like how much of the knowledge you gain you want to exploit to get more rewards, or how much you want to kind of risk with exploration. This is kind of my PhD. I will not take a long time on this, but basically I use reinforcement learning for energy management in IoT devices. Basically, these devices are, let's say you have a temperature sensor at the top of the mountain, and you communicate wirelessly with some solar cell. Basically, you want it to run for like 100 years without a human having to go and do anything. The battery is there, so it should charge and discharge itself, but it should run continuously, no stop times. And basically, assuming that we'll have billions of these sensor nodes all over the world, like for agriculture, pollution sensing, like bridge, like infrastructure monitoring, etc. I try to use a learning algorithm to figure out what kind of energy management to use. I doubt this will work. Unfortunately, the animations don't work. I don't have the mouse to make it work. But basically, it's trying to show how it learns over the course of time. I will skip this part. Now, the one thing I did not talk about reinforcement learning is that it learns through one single reward number. So you just give it 1 point or 2 points, and that it learns through that. But the problem is when you do that, it is very difficult to express a very complex objective with one number. There is a hypothesis within our reinforcement learning community that yes, one number should be enough. But then there is also the counterpoint that it is not enough. What if you have very complex goals that you want to achieve with reinforcement learning? For example, let me just point you to this something called Luhart's law. Imagine an AI. You want the AI to say, okay, I want you to maximize the number of nails, nails, and you say, okay, make me the most number of nails. It might end up making millions and billions of very small nails that are completely useless. Or you can say, okay, I want 3 kgs of nails, and it starts making like big nails that are completely useful. It's 3 kgs, yes, it did its work, but not useful at all. So when you misspecify what you want, it's not very clear what the metric is that you are trying to optimize for. You might get things that you are not really, that you don't really want. There's something also called the Cobra effect, So during the British rule in India, the cobras were a big problem. So the British government decided, okay, we'll put bounties on dead cobras, and hopefully when people kill them, the number of cobras will decrease. Unfortunately, people realized, oh, that's a really nice source of income, and they started farming cobras, and made a really nice income out of it. So in the end, the number of cobras actually increased, even though the original intention was to decrease the number of cobras. So when we are not sure, or if we are not careful with what kind of rewards we give to these agents, we might get very unexpected behavior. A very this moral is nicely captured in this story I used to hear as a kid called The Monkey's Paw. It's made into a movie called Park Benny, basically. Be careful what you wish for. Or you hear this in these genie jokes, you ask a genie for something and gives you that, but then you actually end up suffering because of it. Well, these were two animations that I wanted to show you how the AI actually learned to hack the rewards. The point was that both was to finish the race, but then it also gets points if it hits some obstacles along the way. So it decided, okay, I want to finish the race, I will just keep on hitting the obstacles and get more points. It technically did maximize its objective, but it didn't really understand what the human was trying to ask for.
Learn to exploit the physics system and just track the reward. After that,
Okay. So, anyways, now let me go a bit more to the ethics and the morality of this. In order for AI to be useful for humans, it needs to be aligned for humans. We have to keep in mind that AI is a tool. We cannot let it, we should not let it be the supervisor of human values. Like what Hirono-san said yesterday, it should be human-centric. People should come first. It's for us. We don't make AI for the sake of AI, we make AI for the sake of us. And all the ethical capabilities that AGI will attain will have to align to our values. And I understand our values are not clear even now. After years and years, we have always revised our ethics, our morals, our social norms, and this needs to be at least reflected in the AI. It needs to be malleable, it needs to be updatable towards different human values and ethics. And there are many ways to go about it, and I'm now presently my research is on multi-objective reinforcement learning, and I hope that with this kind of multi-objective goal pursuing agents, we can be like, okay, let's say you have a car, a self-driving car, and usually you would like to maximize fuel efficiency, time to destination, but as humans probably you would more like the scenery that you see out of the car, or the safety of the path, of the route you take. Now, all these things probably weigh differently to different people in different contexts. Again, this goes back to what Dr. Vini was saying earlier. The context is very important, and AI is very bad at getting context. So there are different ways of getting about it. There's like different values, so being able to trade off between different values in what your goals are. And there's a jury alignment. Basically, it means if a majority of people prefer this value over that, then we go that direction. Or there's a combination of both of them, and this can be achieved through multi-objective reinforcement. So, in summary, all I want to conclude with this is that AI is very powerful. It will be very powerful. It will be a part of our daily life. That's inevitable. But it will consume a lot of energy, and it will come at other costs, such as ethical implications, economic implications, geopolitical tensions. I didn't talk about the chip wars, the semiconductor war between the US and China, between hiding their technology secrets. That is a very big source of tension with Taiwan right in the middle. I think yesterday's talk was also from Hirono-san, was trying to see just a little bit on that. And but with all of this, it has the potential to accelerate human progress. 100 years of development in 10 years, probably. Imagine how different our world will look in 10 years. And then I talked a little about reinforcement learning. You have to be careful when using it because misspecified rewards might give you unwanted behaviors. Maybe multi-objective reinforcement learning might help. So with this, let me end my talk. Thank you for your attention. And as we go towards the end of this AI, let's maybe we get a bit insecure about what human intelligence really is. And let it not be that it's just we are able to turn the traffic lights. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Shashamali, for a compelling and insightful discussion on the ethical considerations surrounding artificial intelligence. Your presentation has certainly given us much to reflect on.
We have had some insightful presentations so far. Now, let's take a short tea break to recharge. Refreshments are available in the corridors of the respective halls, and we kindly request everyone to return to their designated venues by 11:10 a.m. as we will promptly begin our parallel sessions.
After the short break at exactly 11:10 a.m., the parallel sessions will begin in the respective halls. Hall number 1, which is here, hall number 2 on the 6th floor, and hall number 3 in room number 401. Volunteers will direct you to your assigned halls. The chairs will be moderating the session. Once the session concludes, we will break for lunch and reconvene here at 2:10 p.m. for the next series of keynote speeches. We will be back to during the conference with video learning.
We would like to take a moment to introduce a significant initiative led by the Department of Social Work at St. Xavier's College, Winter Warm, which is now in its 8th volume. It is a student-led charity project that reflects the core values of compassion, empathy, and social responsibility that are in the heart of St. Xavier's College. Donation stalls have been set up outside near the photo session spot, and we invite you to have an interaction with us and extend your support to make a meaningful difference in the lives of those in need. Thank you, and we wish you all a wonderful and enriching experience ahead.